There's a 200-year-old oak tree in my front yard. There was a 200-year-old oak tree in my front yard. It was enormous. It had been there since before my neighborhood existed, before the street existed, before the HOA that governs my neighborhood definitely existed. It was, and I say this as someone who is not usually sentimental about plants, genuinely one of the most beautiful things on my property. My HOA president sent me a certified letter saying it violated aesthetic guidelines, and I had 30 days to cut it down or face $200 a day fines. So I looked into it. Turns out that tree was registered under my state's Heritage Tree Protection Act. 200-year-old oak trees qualify automatically. Legally protected. State designated. Cannot be removed without triggering an automatic environmental violation report. I called the HOA president and told her all of this. She told me she didn't care about state law. She told me her HOA guidelines superseded it. She told me to cut the tree. So I did. And the moment that tree hit the ground, an automatic $150,000 fine was issued. Not to me, to the HOA board. I'm Walt. And I want to be very clear. I followed every single rule I was given. I've lived in my house for 14 years, a nice split level in a suburb that I bought specifically because I love the lot. Big yard, mature landscaping, and front and center. The oak tree. I'm going to tell you about the oak tree before I tell you about the HOA, because the oak tree matters. It's approximately 200 years old. I had it assessed by an arborist when I bought the house, partly out of curiosity and partly because I wanted to understand the maintenance commitment. The arborist told me it was exceptional, his word, and that trees of this age and health were increasingly rare in residential neighborhoods. The trunk diameter is over 4 feet. The canopy covers most of my front yard. In spring and summer, it's extraordinary. In fall, it turns this deep amber color that has made strangers stop their cars to look at it. I love that tree. I want to be upfront about that. Now let me tell you about my HOA and specifically about its president, a woman I will call Sandra. Sandra has been HOA president for 3 years. She ran unopposed both times because nobody else wanted the job, and Sandra clearly wanted it more than any reasonable person should want an unpaid volunteer position in a 40-home neighborhood association. She takes it seriously in the way that people take seriously the only domain in which they have any authority. Rules are her oxygen. Compliance is her sport. And she had, in the 3 years of her presidency, sent me 2 prior written notices about things I genuinely did not care about enough to fight. A specific shade of paint on my shutters and a decorative planter she deemed non-compliant. I handled both without incident. I did not want drama. I am a retired logistics manager, and I've spent my entire career avoiding unnecessary conflict. And then she came for the oak tree. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday. It cited Section 4.2 of our HOA aesthetic guidelines, which covers front yard landscaping and visual harmony. The letter stated that my oak tree was inconsistent with the managed and maintained aesthetic of the neighborhood due to its irregular natural growth pattern, which, yes, is because it is 200 years old and has been doing exactly what it wanted since before anyone's grandmother was born. I was given 30 days to remove the tree or face a $200 per day non-compliance fine. I did not respond immediately. Instead, I did something I probably should have done years earlier. I went to my county's records office and pulled the documentation on the tree. I found it within about 40 minutes. The oak tree on my property is registered under my state's Heritage Tree Protection Act, a law that designates trees over a certain age, size, or species classification as protected natural resources. The registration had been filed by the previous owner of my property approximately 20 years ago. It was in the county records. It was cross-referenced with the state environmental database. Under the Heritage Tree Protection Act, a protected tree cannot be removed by a private landowner except under very specific circumstances, imminent structural danger being the primary one, requiring a certified arborist report. Removing a heritage tree without proper authorization triggers an automatic violation report filed with the state's Department of Environmental Conservation. The mandatory fine for non-authorized heritage tree removal, $150,000, payable by the party who ordered or directed the removal. I want you to read that last part again. Payable by the party who ordered or directed the removal. I called Sandra. I explained the Heritage Tree Protection Act. I explained the registration. I explained the $150,000 automatic fine. I explained that if I removed this tree under her order, the fine would be directed at the HOA board, specifically at her, as the issuing authority, not at me, since I would be acting under documented institutional directive. Sandra told me she was aware of no such law. I offered to send her the statute. She said she didn't need it. She said, and I want to be precise here because this is the sentence that made everything that followed possible. HOA guidelines are binding contracts. State environmental guidelines are advisory. You are contractually obligated to comply with our letter. Do so within the remaining time frame or daily fines will begin. I said, understood. I called my attorney that afternoon. I read her the statute. I read her Sandra's letter. I described the phone conversation. My attorney said, Walt, do you want the short answer or the long answer? I said, short. She said, if you remove that tree under a documented HOA order after informing the HOA president of the legal protection in writing, the removal is legally attributable to the HOA's directive. The $150,000 fine hits their operating account automatically. I said, and if I don't remove it? She said, $200 a day. I sat with that for a moment. Then I called the most highly rated certified arborist in my county and scheduled a removal consultation. Before the removal, I did two things that matter. First, I sent Sandra a certified letter, return receipt, the whole thing, formally notifying her in writing that the oak tree was registered as a heritage tree under state law, that its removal would trigger an automatic $150,000 environmental fine under the Heritage Tree Protection Act, that the fine would be directed at the party issuing the removal order, and that I was proceeding with removal solely in documented compliance with the HOA's written directive. I asked her to confirm, in writing, that the HOA board wished me to proceed. She sent back a written confirmation, signed, on HOA letterhead. I have it framed. I am not joking. It is framed. Second, I notified the state's Department of Environmental Conservation in advance that a heritage tree on my registered property would be removed under an HOA order and provided them with the documentation. They confirmed receipt and informed me that an automatic violation report would be filed against the directing party upon removal. The arborist came on a Saturday. Professional, respectful crew. The tree came down in about 4 hours. The crew was careful. I watched from my porch and, I'll be honest, felt genuinely sad about it. 200 years is a long time. That tree had seen things, but it had also earned me what came next. By Monday morning, the state had issued a formal notice of environmental violation to the HOA board. $150,000. Mandatory, not negotiable, not reducible by appeal under standard circumstances. The statute has limited exceptions, and HOA president told me, too, is not among them. The HOA's operating account, from what I subsequently learned from other board members, held approximately $23,000 at the time. They did not have $150,000. The next 3 months were something I genuinely hadn't fully anticipated. The fine triggered a cascade. The HOA's inability to pay resulted in the state placing a lien against the association's common property assets. Sandra, as the signatory on the directive, was personally named in the violation notice. The association's insurance carrier declined coverage on the grounds that the board had been explicitly warned of the legal exposure in writing, specifically by me, in a certified letter, which I had the return receipt for. 2 board members resigned within 2 weeks of the notice. An emergency HOA meeting was called. I attended. It was the most awkward 70 minutes of my adult life, and also genuinely one of the most satisfying. The short version of what happened after. The association has been effectively dissolved pending resolution of the state fine. Sandra has retained personal counsel. The neighborhood is currently ungoverned by any formal HOA, which I understand creates some administrative complications for people with outstanding issues, but which I personally find extremely peaceful. My front yard has a stump. A very large, very old stump. I have decided to leave it. I had a local artist come out and look at it. She thinks she can carve something beautiful into it. 200 years of oak deserves better than a void. Multiple people asked if I feel bad about the tree. Yes. Genuinely yes. It was a magnificent tree, and I miss it. That part is real, and it costs something to say. Multiple people asked if I feel bad about Sandra. Sandra was warned in a certified letter, given the full statutory text, asked to confirm her directive in writing, and chose to proceed. I did not create the Heritage Tree Protection Act. I did not register that tree as protected. I did not send myself the removal order. I complied with the rules I was given. That's what I do. Someone asked what I'd have done if Sandra had backed down after my letter. I'd have kept the tree. Obviously, it was a great tree. Sandra had a rule, and she enforced that rule with certified letters and daily fines and the absolute confidence of someone who has never once considered that the rules she makes might have rules above them. Walt warned her, in writing. with the statute attached, with a return receipt. She signed the confirmation anyway. And the moment that 200-year-old oak hit the ground, the state didn't ask for an explanation. It didn't hold a hearing. It didn't offer a payment plan. It sent a $150,000 mandatory fine to the party who had ordered the removal. Sandra had $23,000. Walt had a stump and a framed letter in a very, very quiet neighborhood. He didn't fight the HOA. He didn't sue. He didn't organize the neighbors or go to the media. He just read the law, documented everything, sent a certified letter, and did exactly what he was told. Some compliance is the best revenge imaginable. So jury, did Walt handle this perfectly? Or should he have pushed back harder and kept the tree? And the question I genuinely want every person watching to answer. Have you ever had a Sandra in your life? Someone who was so certain their authority was absolute that they forgot other authorities existed? Drop your verdict in the comments. Every single one. The floor is completely yours.